We cannot wait to 2027. The time is now. Eric, you talked about SGR. SGR is very, very dear to me. And people like to say, Jimmy, you've been doing deals. I've been a businessman. I am an innovator. I create. SGR I created in 2008. And SGR, the way he created it with this same company called China Road and Bridge, was simply a project that was to be done privately. We are trying to remove RVR that had become a total failure for movement of goods and services. We costed a private, take note, project from here, Mombasa, all the way to Malaba at 60 billion shillings. And if anybody wants the facts, we'll show them. Nobody has contradicted me. 60 billion shillings. And we had a return on that investment of 7 to 8 years, an ROI of 7 to 8 years. It was a fantastic project. It suddenly became a project of 380 billion between Mombasa and Nairobi. Became a project of 500 billion between Mombasa and Naivasha. 500 billion shillings. And it became a government project that the taxpayers to fork this money, the taxpayers the one to pay to borrow. So we said, okay, we don't want to be involved anymore. This is now looting. And I walked out. I completely walked out. And let me tell you, in as much as I had thought maybe people are earning particular amounts of commission on the construction or the wagons, we did an analysis thereafter. The EPC, which is the construction, and the wagons from Mombasa to Nairobi, Mombasa to Naivasha is 500 billion. The finance contracts, the loan contract says this with China Exim Bank. They are going to provide 90% of that money, 450 billion. Kenyans should raise 10% from their taxes. That agreement was signed. So we audited government records. Did we receive the money from China? Yes, we did. We drew down 450 billion shillings. That money was paid to China Road and Bridge by China Exim Bank. Those drawdown receipts, we have them. Different exchange rates, but we have them. Did we pay the 50 billion into Kenya Railways to pay to China Road and Bridge? Yes, we did. We did the sums. It is called self-raising finance grant treasury to Kenya Railways for onward transmission to the contractor China Road and Bridge, right? Our 10% contribution. And we just did the sums. And when we did the sums, to our amazement, to our shock, it wasn't 50 billion. We, from our taxes, from the coffers of treasury, paid 644 billion shillings instead of 50 billion. So we paid China Road and Bridge an amount of 1.1 trillion for a contracted project of 500 billion. Nobody ever thought anyone would ever look at the bottom line, would ever go through the myriad of documents and just do simple math. So 600 to 700 billion shillings was looted from our coffers. We built that railway with our own money. We didn't need a loan, and then some. And remember, we had a costing of 60 billion. This is called economic genocide. What has been done by the Ruto regime and being continued by this charlatan, unhinged charlatan called Ruto, is a continuation of economic genocide. We cannot continue this, Eric. We cannot continue this, Cyprian. We cannot continue this, Edgar. All of you that are listening to this, we must put an end to this monster that is not only finishing us, it is finishing generations to come. And the way we do it is by not feeding this monster. A government survives by simply three basic things: the people, the money it receives, and the guns it has. That is how, especially a government like the one of Ruto and the one of Uhuru, because the constitution and rule of law, they pushed it aside, because that should be the foundation. Those three things. We do not have guns. We are not going to an armed struggle, and I will never advocate for it. But we have the power in our pocket. to refuse them money. Because when we refuse them money, they cannot operate. They cannot abduct us. They cannot shoot us. They cannot oppress us. They grind to a halt. The Gen Z economic revolution that we saw in March, in May and April, in June, were very clearly a change of the center of gravity of Kenyan politics. They cancelled, they delegitimized William Ruto. They have cancelled parliament. It is over for them. We are going through the process of completing that journey. That journey, normally in established democracies, even democracies with our kind of constitution, means that William Ruto, because he could not pass his finance bill, had to reject it, should have called a general election. He chose the other option of reaching out to the opposition. So he brought in Raila Odinga and didn't quite do it very well because just gave him a few seats. He never changed his template, his economic template, because that's the next thing you do. You try and create a different economic model because that one has failed, and try and come back and sell it to the people and bring back another finance bill that we say, okay, maybe we give him another year, right? He didn't do that. He didn't. Now, because Raila has been unable to change the legitimate question of his rule, he's now reaching out to his compatriot, Uhuru Kenyatta, to try and get more legitimacy. I want to advise anybody who is in politics and anybody who is in this space and who is listening. Let me tell you, you enter William Ruto's ship with these guys, you will sink with them. You are going to carry nobody but yourself. You get divorced from the people. 90% of Kenyans are not going to board that vehicle. They left it. And they want to know how we stop this man now. And how we stop this man now is very simply by denying him money. I am calling for a tax revolt. We have lamented enough. We have shouted enough. We have cursed enough. We have said Ruto must go enough, or must go, or Kasongo must go. We have said all those things. Now it is a time for action. That time for action is let us deny them the revenue that they are oppressing us with, that they have enslaved us with. And we must begin a tax revolt. In the next few days, hopefully within the next 1 week, we'll be unleashing a way of methods under which we can deny and refuse this government any more taxation. And the Supreme Court, this delinquent, and I call it delinquent Supreme Court, has already given us a legal way out. In 2020, they had a legal opinion on the finance bill and said that the budget is the revenue estimates, our taxation, and the expenditure together, where it is going. That becomes the budget called the Appropriations Act. And that was the challenge of the Finance Bill of 2023, that the revenue part is not in the Appropriations Act. Now, that was an opinion they had in 2020, that the Court of Appeal quoted in rejecting the Finance Bill of 2023. Then they come and they suddenly say, oh, revenue does not have to be part of the Appropriations Bill. So, if revenue does not have to be, that means tax is not part of the budget. So what are we paying to? They've already given us a legal way out. Your paying tax today is actually not legal because you have to pay tax to a budget. They have said that you are not part of the budget. So we don't need to pay tax. Now it is the method. And the more we join, the more I can assure you, right, this guy collapses. He has had a scolding this week from IMF. He's had a scolding from World Bank that has told him, you're heading towards debt default. What are you doing to stop this? And all he's saying is that he's still going to come back to us with more taxation, like he has removed the taxation on fertilizer. That's what Bandi has done. They are removing the VAT also on pesticides, right? So that it's now added. So he's saying they are coming back to us with taxation. We must stop this monster, right? And not feed it. We stop it by saying categorically, we are not going to feed it. So when you go to a shop, tell him you don't want to pay VAT because it's cheaper for you and he can go off book. You pay him cash. Do not pay M-Pesa. You can now file a return and do not give the money. You can also refuse to file return if you're earning salaries. If you are a business, you can refuse. If we do it in the millions, what can they do? Kerry can't attack all of us. We are prepared to be the guinea pigs. Come for me if you want and charge me for causing a revolt of tax revolt. Yes, come like yesterday. I will defend myself in court because we have already gotten out. So they can't do anything if we starve them of money. We must starve them of this money because we are just feeding a monster. We are feeding monsters that come and call us stupid and mad. He even points to his head and calls us mad, right? Who is this man? He's unhinged. Why are we feeding him anymore? Why are we feeding them to buy SUVs while we have potholes on the ground here? Why are we feeding them? And every day we just have misery. Why are we feeding them? And we have no health services. 69% of anybody who is earning an income is going towards debt. In France, Nelson is here. France is one of the most taxed nations. 60% of anyone's income goes towards tax. But what do they get? They get infrastructure, they get security, they get free education, they get excellent health care. You go in for a heart surgery or cancer and you get the best in the world. They get unemployment insurance when you don't have a job. They get pension. In fact, the big fight in France is when is retirement age, because everybody wants that pension because you will live very well until you leave this good earth. You can live and live by the beach in Mallorca and other places. That's what they want. So here, with 69%, what are we getting? We get a president who stands up and calls us stupid, calls us mad, all right? Calls us upepo sijui. I don't know what upepo. I don't know who gave him those words. Upepo sijui what kutoka wapi. This is a man now who cannot survive. His pillars have all broken. He came in with a narrative called Hustler Dynasty. Today, he has abandoned that line of the hustlers. He's now operating with the dynasties that he used to talk about. He came in with a church. The church have now called him. All the churches, including Muslims, have now called him a complete liar. He came in with a so-called articulate mouth. That mouth has been taken away. He came in with a lady called Meg Whitman. She has gone too. This man is only operating, and I can tell you today, because Uhuru has not gone there with anybody. He's gone there by himself with his family. He's operating only one leg called Raila Odinga. And that is not going to last. We, the people, must stop feeding this monster. Tax revolt is the way. It has worked in many jurisdictions. It has worked in France. That was the advent of the French Revolution. It worked with stopping apartheid. Even here in Kenya, Wakulima Market, there was a tax revolt that made sure that what they wanted was achieved. We had the hut tax a long time ago that led to the poll tax that we rejected, and eventually was the advent of Mau Mau. We have had success all over the world. I had a friend of mine from South Africa who called and said yesterday that, you know, this tax revolt worked for us as ANC against apartheid. The biggest problem we had was that when we took power, we had great difficulty getting people back to pay tax because they had gotten used to not paying it, right? But we eventually succeeded. It worked with Bagbo and Ouattara. That was one of the things that crumbled Ouattara, that crumbled Bagbo, right? We can do it here, and we must do it now, because we starve this monster, he collapses. We starve this monster, he takes us to default. And when he starts taking us to default, we'll ask, what are we defaulting on? That is not us who owe that money. It is not ours. You criminals who took it, you're the ones to pay it. We are not going to be your slaves. We are not your slaves. We are not going to be your slaves now and into the future. And we use that opportunity to not only cut off the debt, which is our slavery, but create a system that is deeper than what was embedded by the colonialists over 100 years ago. This is our economic liberation period, and it is our promise to change a system so that if Jimmy is on top tomorrow, I cannot do what Uhuru did. If Eric, you're the one on top tomorrow, you cannot do what they did. You cannot do what Moi did. We create a system that is about the empowerment of the people. that is about people, not leaders, that it is a life of service, and create a new aura and a period for generations to come that make Kenya great for the next 100 years plus. These are periods that happens, and that's why we must have hope. These are periods that change France. These are periods that change China after they had identified their cultural revolution. The economic revolution changed China. These are periods that have changed everywhere that you are talking about a great nation. This is our time, and we cannot wait another 985 days for this man to continue pretending he's our president. He is not. He's just a mere taxpayer, a charlatan, and a crook. Asante sana.